Did it ever happen to you that you were discussing, debating, or arguing about something with one of your friend, and your friend was coming with so many logical arguments in order to support his position, but you noticed that his logics were flawed, they were not consistent, and for some reasons you could not pinpoint or explain how his logics were flawed, and the situation just left you frustrated, and you were like, you're not understanding me, I know you're playing with the word, or you're manipulating me, blah blah blah. If it ever happened to you and you don't want it to happen with you, then you should watch this video, because here's the thing, we all have different position on different ideas like, is it morally okay to eat animals or not, should we legalize abortion or not, what about polyamorous relationships, and which one is best, capitalism, communism. We all have position on all these ideas, but before having our position on any idea, we tend to think about it, we tend to use our brain, and I must be very optimistic to think that people in an age where TikTok is the most used application with just a weird trend, that people would still be using their brain. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that we use our brain, we look back into our experiences, and we do some calculation in the back of our head, and then we come up with our position on the idea. And then there are some people who don't have any position because they believe what their parents told them and they never question it. And then there are some great people who actually read a book about the subject, or maybe talk to a friend who knows about the subject, or maybe listen to an expert on the subject. And if the logics of the book, friend, or that expert are convincing enough, then you will be convinced and their position becomes your position. But think about it, if your friend can be convinced to have a specific position on an idea using flawed logics, and he's so convinced that he cannot understand that he's wrong, maybe just like that, the logics that you read, heard, or thought were also flawed, and you are just convinced using those flawed logics. That is what we're going to talk about in today's video, about those flawed logics that we use all the time and they feel believable, but they are actually flawed logic. So my name is Ishan Ali and you are on Diary of a Brown Boy. I don't know how to explain this, but here's the thing. Whenever someone uses a logical argument, it gives us an insight that the next person has thought about the subject. He sat down with himself and he was like, okay, if it's true or not, he must have read something. And if the next person uses more logics, then they become more believable for us that, okay, that person is expert. He have so many logical arguments to support his position, so he must be right. But their logics can be flawed, and that is why it is very important for us to learn about flawed logics so we can understand better. And there are some great people who list down all the flawed logics and explain how they were flawed logic, and all those flawed logics are actually called logical fallacies. So a logical fallacy is just a flawed logic that we use every day and it feels believable, but it is not. And that is what we are going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to talk about 5 logical fallacies that is very common that we use every day, and they are easy to understand how they're logical fallacies. And I'm going to give you an example how it is used in politics, in commercials, and in real life relationships in order to understand them. And I'm going to also explain how this is actually a logical fallacy and how to counter them. So in order to make this a little bit fun and more easy to understand, I'm going to do an act with every fallacy. So I hope my act will be good, but I don't know. So let's just move to our first fallacy, see this act and think about what was a logic that was used and how it was wrong. So there we go. Hi dad, can I go and meet my friend Michael, the one who smokes cigarette? That Michael? Yeah, you cannot go and meet him. Why not? Because your friend smokes a cigarette. So what? Listen beta, let me tell you that when you will go and meet him, you will start smoking cigarettes with him. Seriously? Then one day you guys will start doing drugs. It's not gonna happen. And then you will become a homeless addict on the streets. I don't want this future for you, dad. So that is why you should not meet him. Dad, please, I won't allow it. Okay, whatever. So you saw the act and I hope that it was a good act, that I was acting good, but I don't know. But if you notice that the logic of the dad was, if his son will do A, then he will do B, then that will lead towards C, and then that will lead towards D, and that's it. And that is actually a flawed logic. That is actually a logical fallacy. And now you might be like, Zishan, by how it is a logical fallacy, how it is a flawed logic when patterns repeat themselves all the time, and it is a pattern that if you're a friend with someone who smokes cigarette and you will meet with him, then you will be comfortable to smoke cigarette. And once you become comfortable to smoke cigarette, then you're more likely to drug. And when you do drugs, you become careless about the work. So how this is a flaw, how this is a fallacy, just explain it to me. And let me explain it to you. It is a fallacy because patterns don't repeat themselves all the time. I agree with you on the fact that patterns repeat themselves oftentimes, but not all the time. For example, if we look at around our world, there are so many people who smoke cigarettes but they never do drugs, right? This fallacy is just so common in Desi people, so I think that Desi people can understand where I'm coming from, you know. And if your dad uses the same argument in order for you to not to meet with a friend who smokes cigarette, just ask your dad if he smokes. Dad, you smoke cigarette, right? You also do drugs and you're not telling us, and then get ready for a flying chapel facing you. Anyway, this is a fallacy, and this fallacy is called slippery slope fallacy. A slippery slope fallacy is a fallacy in which you think that if someone will do A, then no matter what, it will lead towards B, and that no matter what, that will definitely lead towards C, and then you have no life, like you're done with your life. This is a slippery slope fallacy, and let me explain it to you how it is used in a commercial. So I saw a commercial some years ago, and the commercial goes something like that. You have a cable TV. One day your cable doesn't work out. It makes you angry. When you become angry, you will start driving. When you will start driving in an angry mood, then you are more likely to have an accident, and then you will have an accident, then you will have a terrible life. So if you don't want to have a terrible life, just use our cable TV. Yeah, that is how this fallacy is used oftentimes in commercials, but at the same time it is also used in politics. And let me give you an example. I'm gonna try to beat Trump. Let's try that. Let me tell you one thing. Muslims are not honest with us. I think Islam hates us. And as a president of you, the best president, I can tell you, if we let more Muslims come into our country, then they will have a lot of babies. When they will have a lot of babies, then they're gonna overthrow our government, and then they will implement Sharia law. Do you want that? It is not the best example, but you get the point that a lot of politicians use this fallacy that if you do this, then that will happen, then that will happen, then they will create a kind of fear, and they will be like, I am your only solution, so you should vote for me. So that is slippery slope fallacies. And how to counter them? It is very easy. If you know about the pattern which they are talking about, then just give them an example where the pattern did not repeat itself, or just explain to them that what they are doing, and that's it. And now let's move to our second fallacy, and let's do another terrible act. Hey Dad, we are going to vote off in 2 days, so I was thinking, whom are you going to vote for? I am thinking of voting for George Bush. Well, if you love this country, you shouldn't vote for him. He's a traitor. Who said so? A lot of other celebrities believe that, like they agree. Alright, so you saw the second act in which you saw a beautiful kid who was arguing with his dad that his dad should vote for someone or shouldn't vote for someone because of a lot of other celebrities think that we shouldn't, and this is actually a fallacy. And now you will be like, wait, how this is a fallacy? Because of a lot of famous people are educated people, they are smart people, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of wealth, and they have a lot of connections, so they must be asking us to not to vote for someone for some reasons. And I agree with the fact that it is good to consider what a lot of famous people thinks that, but you need to understand that they are not figure of authority. What I mean by that is that celebrities are not expert. They don't know about how economy works, they don't know about government work, they don't know about how politics work. Now let me share with you an interesting thing. There was an operation that was done in India in which they find out that a lot of famous celebrities were ready to tweet for a politician if you give them money. Like they were ready to support a politician just because they were giving them money.
बीजेपी हमें कैंपिंग करना है,
नहीं कैंपिंग शब्द मत यूज करिए यहाँ पर बात
अच्छी वाली करनी है, रेपो बनाना मतलब.
And that explains a lot at why you shouldn't do something just because a celebrity tells you to do it. Anyway, this is a fallacy which is called fallacious appeal to authority fallacy, and in that fallacy we try to justify something or prove something by saying that I am right because that person believes that it is the right thing to do because this person is doing that, even when those people are not expert. And now let me give you some examples. One of the examples will be like in commercials especially, that you should use this beautiful comb because Ishan Ali is using it. Okay, I'm kidding, but you have seen a lot of commercials like that. You should use this product because of a lot of other people does that. You should use this diet because this athlete uses it, and blah, and it works out. And that is why they pay billions of money to celebrities who don't know anything about stuff most of the time. So that is why it is not good and it is a fallacy. The second example I will give you, actually I will not give you an example, I will actually show you a clip of Ben Shapiro. He's a great intellectual, but he uses this fallacy oftentimes, and this clip is going to show you one example of that.
And this isn't my argument. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s argument. This is the argument Frederick Douglass. Martin Luther King said, in the name of the flag.
Alright, so now you understand that what is fallacious appeal to authority and how to counter it. Basically, whenever someone says that you should do this because that person is doing that, simply ask them, are they expert or not? And that's it. And now let me explain to you one thing, that there is one thing that is called fallacious appeal to authority, which I just explained, and then another thing that is called appeal to authority fallacy. Basically, the difference is that in the second fallacy, you just appeal to someone who is an expert instead of debating about or explaining why that scientist believes this. So whenever you are having a debate or an argument, don't say that you should do this because that scientist is doing that. You should always debate about why that scientist is right. If you're just saying that I believe that because that scientist does that, then there is no point of debating, and that will be an appeal to authority fallacy. So whenever you're having a debate, always talk about why, not who. Anyway, now let's go to the third fallacy, and let me tell you that one statement or one argument can have more than one fallacies at the same time. And in this argument or in the second act, I did two fallacies, and I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I'm gonna do another act and let's see that if you look at that a second act, can you make the link, can you observe the fallacy or not? So let's do the third act. Hey Dan, what are you watching? I am just watching a video about feminism. Oh, so you're watching something about feminism. So do you consider yourself a feminist? Yes, I am a feminist. I don't agree with a lot of things that they say. What you don't agree with feminism? Like men and women are not equal, like they are not same. Well, that you cannot believe that and be feminist at the same time. Okay, so you saw the act and I hope that you noticed the fallacy. I hope that you were able to make the link, but if you weren't, that's fine. And let me give you a hint. If you love this country, then do this. If you're a feminist, you cannot believe that. So this is a fallacy, and what is happening there is that someone is saying that either you can be A or you can be B, but you cannot be C. Like, I know, just bear with me, okay? You will understand everything. That there is not such thing as C, and that is a fallacy. Now you will be like, wait, Zishan bhai, you know feminism is for equality, how it is a fallacy if you are saying that you're a feminist but you're not for equality. And let me explain to you one thing, that you can be a feminist and you can believe that there should be an equal opportunity for both genders, but saying that men and women are equal no matter what, it is a fallacy because men and women are not biologically same. Anyway, so that's clear, and now let's go back to the fallacy. The fallacy is that either there is an option A or there is an option B, when there can be more options available, and that fallacy is called false dichotomy or false dilemma. And this thing happens so many times in politics, in commercials, and so many other things. For example, there was a debate that I watched some months ago, and that debate was about anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism.
So that this time we will not have to wait to see where anti-Zionism leads, and only then look back in hindsight and say, ah, yes, that rising wave of anti-Zionism was indeed the new form of anti-Semitism.
Like, you cannot be against Zionism and you can be pro for Jews at the same time. Basically saying that if you're against the ideology of Zionism, you are against Jews. You are some kind of a Nazi. And some other examples are like... And the second example is I saw often in like debate about if your country is a good country or not, and people are like, either you love it or you leave it.
If you don't like living in the United States of America, then you can all move to Russia, Cuba, or China. This is the First Amendment.
Well, you can love your country and you can criticize it at the same time. You don't need to leave it. But people just show it like that. Either you can love this country or you can criticize the country, and that's it. And the third example I will give you is that either you are with us or you are with them. Like explaining that you cannot be friend of two people at the same time or two parties at the same time when you can be. And this is the fallacy, that you are suggesting that there is no third option when there can be a third option. And now let's talk about how to counter this fallacy, and how you can counter it is by simply asking them the question, why you think that only these two options are there, why cannot be this option be there? And then you can continue the debate like that. And now let's move to the fourth fallacy and let's do another act. Hey, have you heard that Shamim and David are going to divorce with each other? Really? I didn't know that. When did it happen? Well, as far as I know, it is because David used to doubt Shamim a lot and she just got tired of it. Well, you can't just clap with one of your hand. What do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is Shamim must have done something for David to doubt her in the first place. Alright, so you saw the fourth act, and let's talk about the logical fallacy in the act. So basically, one person was explaining to the second person that this divorce is taking place because the husband was abusive and he was possessive and he used to doubt, and the second person says that it can't be this way. It must be because the girl must have done something wrong in order for him to start doubting in the first place. And in order to justify that, he uses an example of you cannot clap with one of your hands. Let me explain it to you why I used that weird example there. Well, basically in Desi culture there is an expression which says that you cannot clap with one of your hand. In order to make a noise, both hands need to do something, which basically suggests that one person cannot fuck up entirely. The second person will do something in order to fuck this situation up. And my mom uses this expression so many times, and whenever she uses it, I'm like, you know, you can't clap with one of your hands. Some people have this talent, and she looks at me like, one day I'm gonna kill you. But anyway, what was a fallacy? This is a fallacy which is called middle ground fallacy. A middle ground fallacy suggests that if there are two solutions available and we don't know which solution is the right solution, then the right solution must be in between two options. And just like I showed you in act, the person was committing a middle ground fallacy by suggesting that one person cannot be entirely wrong, both person must have done something wrong, and that is why we have this problem of divorce. So that is a middle ground position. This is a middle ground fallacy. Whenever you're like the right answer must be between two things, that is wrong. And how to counter it is you can simply just say that if there are some people who says that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 and some people are saying that 2 plus 2 is equal to 2, then the answer must be 2 plus 2 is equal to 3. No, that doesn't work that way out. You cannot use middle ground fallacy. So this is middle ground fallacy. I don't have more examples for it, but I think that I gave you a good example. So anyway, let's move to the fifth fallacy and let's do another act. We all know that you beat your wife, but the question is that, did you beat her today? No, I didn't beat her today. So you kind of admitted that you beat her. Alright, so you saw the act and let me explain it to you that what is the fallacy there. It is going to be a little bit more complicated, so pay attention here. Alright, so you saw the fifth act and let me explain it to you and pay attention because this fallacy is a complicated one, and let me explain it to you how, but pay attention. So basically one person made a statement and their statement was like, you beat your wife, did you beat her today? Basically you beat your wife. It is said in a way that it makes it feel or look like that it is true. It is agreed upon that he does beat her wife, but the question is, did he beat her today or not? But what if the person did not beat her wife at all and it is not proven? At that point this will be a fallacy, and that fallacy will be called a loaded question fallacy. A loaded question fallacy has two parts in one statement, and the first part is a statement which looks like it is proven when it is not. It is not proven, it is not agreed upon, and based on that assumption which sounds like a reality, you ask another question. This fallacy is more of a tactic for me because here's the thing, our brain cannot answer two questions at the same time. We cannot think about two things at the same time. So whenever someone asks or use this loaded question, our brain focus on the question because it is the ending part, and that is where our focus will be. And if you're not trained, if you're not a good communicator, you will be like, no, I didn't beat her today. It will make you look like guilt, and the person will be like, oh, so you did beat your wife maybe before, and you will be like, hey, no, I didn't. And when you will realize what happened, that you will become uncomfortable and you will look more guilty that you're a liar and you're trying to hide something. That is why I think that it is more of a tactic than a fallacy, because it just fucks up your brain. And now to give you some examples, it will be used something like, can you give me back my keys? So in both of those things there is an assumption that is there, and based on that assumption someone is asking the question. I use this technique also, but I'm not conscious. Like if I don't find my keys, I will basically think that it must be because I gave it to my friend, so I will ask them even if I'm not sure if I gave them the keys or not, but I will speak like, can you give me back my keys? So this is the fallacy, and how to counter it. If you want to go hard, then you can just put the focus back to the person by being calm and being like,
how dare you to accuse me of something like that? Do you have any proof for that?
this will basically put the focus on the next person. But if you're a nice guy and you want to go easy on the next person, then you can be like,
what is the proof that I have done this? Do you have any proof or not?
so yeah, these were the 5 fallacies, and I'm so tired. Oh, okay. Okay. But let me tell you one thing, that there is another fallacy, and that fallacy is called fallacy. Which basically says that just because an argument have a fallacy in it, it doesn't mean that the argument is wrong or entirely wrong. So keep that in mind. Just because there is a fallacy in an argument, try to still look for some truth in the argument. And another thing is that we don't use all these fallacies intentionally. These are the kind of patterns and things which we just use it and we don't realize it because we just don't pay attention to such stuff. So yeah, there can be someone who are committing this fallacy and they are not aware about that. So don't be like, if someone uses this fallacy, oh, he must be playing with my mind or he must be playing with my head. So these are the 2 things, keep them on your mind. And there are some great other fallacies, and like true Scotsman fallacy, false cause fallacy, blah blah. There are so many good fallacies and they're much more complicated. So I just went with the most easy one, and I hope that it was good one, and I hope that now you will understand this word in a better place, and I hope you learned something from this video. So now I need to go to the sleep. So take care of yourself. Bye bye. And I'm sweating so much. Bye bye.